Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm Joanna and this video is all about those really satisfying clips you see on Instagram. I've always wondered how much work is actually involved in getting that one perfectly satisfying moment, so I decided to test out 10 different trends for myself. As it turns out, some of these were much harder than I expected, and others were downright dangerous. So keep on watching to see what happened and be sure to subscribe for more DIY videos like this. I'm also going to give each Instagram trend a rating based on the overall impression. So this isn't only rating how satisfying the final result is, but also takes safety and difficulty into account. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to Wix for sponsoring this video. I used to be a web designer, so this is a partnership that's close to my heart. Wix provides one of the most advanced and professional services for anyone to create their own website. I love their platform because of the huge range of well-designed templates that you can choose from. You can create an online shop, a small business page, a blog or wedding website with just a few clicks, and every tiny detail is customizable. You can get 10% off Wix's unlimited premium plan by using my code macaroon300, so be sure to check out the link below. A premium plan allows you to use your own domain names, which of course makes every website more polished. It's also worth mentioning that Wix doesn't take any commission from their online shops. So if you're selling slime, squishies, or handmade crafts online, then you get to keep 100% of your own sales, which is a great deal compared to other e-commerce platforms. Thank you so much for listening to our sponsor message, and now let's move on to the Instagram trends. First of all, we've got plastic bubbles. These have suddenly gone up in popularity on Instagram lately, and I'm sure you've all seen clips of it. This is not a new product, since I loved to play with it as a kid, and I've often wondered what happened to it. After a bit of research, I discovered that it's actually because this product is so toxic that it was banned from many countries. It's been illegal in Australia since the 90s, recalled in Canada in 2015, and I'm sure this was taken off the market pretty early in Europe because I haven't seen it in shops for years. However, it is still legal in the USA and probably parts of Asia because that's where those Instagram videos first started. This bubble paste basically contains PVA dissolved in a solvent of acetone and benzene. The solvents evaporate very quickly, so you end up with a thick plastic bubble that you can hold. This is different to the touchable bubble solution which I showed in this video here, because that uses water as a solvent, which makes it non-toxic. The main concern with plastic bubbles is that the solvents produce chemical fumes and they can be absorbed through your skin. Acetone is nail polish remover and it can make you feel dizzy or sick if you breathe it in for a long time, and benzene is proven to cause cancer. This one actually has a convenient sticker covering up the ingredients, but once you take it off, it also lists methyl cyclohexane, which is a flammable solvent mostly used in gasoline. Needless to say, these are things that you don't want anywhere near your body, but the nature of this toy actually forces you to inhale all of these chemicals through the straw while you're blowing up every bubble. But of course, the potential danger of anything depends on the total amount of exposure, so I think it's just important that I tell you guys the facts and you can decide for yourself whether or not you want to use this product. I've seen more and more videos of these bubbles on Instagram, and I think a lot of people aren't actually aware of the risks. Personally, I only used this toy once to make this video, and I threw away the rest after filming. I also decided to wear gloves because I didn't want to get on my skin, aside from the very last popping part, which literally takes a second, so for me that was an acceptable risk. First, I'm going to squeeze a tiny bit of paste onto the straw. Then I gently blew a bubble and pinched off the end to seal it. I actually found it quite tricky to close up the bubbles because many of them would rip or deflate. I think it might have been because the weather was extremely hot when I was filming this, so the paste might have been sticky, or I was wearing gloves, or the product was simply too old. On Instagram, you often see people making giant stacks or flower shapes with these bubbles, but for safety reasons, I decided to stick with just one. I sprinkled the top with glitter, and I have to admit, this looks really aesthetic. Popping it was also very satisfying. I decided to make one last pink bubble and then call it a day. I do love the look of these bubbles and I have nostalgic childhood memories with them, but I think this product is just too toxic to be considered safe in 2018. Next, we're going to be cutting up some shower jelly. In direct contrast to the previous one, this Instagram trend is super safe and easy to do. I'm starting with these lush shower jellies, which smell amazing and they already have such a satisfying texture to play with. These are completely reusable afterwards, so you're not going to be wasting any products for this DIY. I'm simply going to pour it out and cover the whole top with glitter. By the way, all of Lush's jelly products are made using carrageenan and not gelatin. This is derived from seaweed, which holds its shape very well at room temperature and makes the product vegan as well. The jelly slices easily and is so satisfying to watch. To reuse the shower jelly, simply rinse the glitter away using a sieve and you can place the product back into the original container. Afterwards, just let the glitter dry and then vacuum it up or throw it away in the bin. It's important not to rinse glitter made from plastic down the sink because this is bad for the environment and it can clog up your pipes as well. This experiment gets a high rating because it's super fun, easy to clean up, and not dangerous for anyone old enough to use a knife. Now we've got floral foam crushing. This is very easy to set up, and you simply need to wet a piece of floral foam and then sprinkle glitter all over it. Then crush it over a bowl of water to create some great ASMR. You can experiment with different designs or hide the glitter inside the foam so you can't see what color it is. This DIY is safe and easy to do, however it does require a lot of cleaning up. As mentioned earlier, you shouldn't rinse glitter down the sink, so you have to filter out all the pieces using a sieve and then leave it to dry. For this reason, I'm going to give floral foam a medium rating, because even though this Instagram trend is super satisfying to make, trying to clean up wet glitter is so tedious that it takes away some of the fun. Next, I'm going to try some soap cutting. I think this trend originated from Russia, and some of the Instagram clips are insanely satisfying to watch and listen to. In most of the videos, they simply use a craft knife and a drugstore bar of soap, so that's what I'm going to start with as well. I have to admit that I'm not at all experienced with cutting stuff using a knife, so I was a bit wary of this DIY. I'm going to begin with the crisscross method, which involves slicing a grid pattern across the surface. The soap texture is much harder than I expected, and I have a constant anxious feeling that the knife is going to slip. The same thing applies when trying to slice the pieces off the front. This part looks entirely effortless in those Instagram videos, but I found it surprisingly difficult. I'm pretty sure that I'm not using the right technique, but this is something that still has a fairly risky learning curve. For this reason, I'm going to give soap cutting a low rating because this has a very high chance of injury, especially if you don't have any experience using a knife. Moving on to a similar trend, we've got soap curls. I decided to use a vegetable peeler for this, which feels slightly safer than a knife. Once again, this turned out a lot harder than I expected. The soap wasn't very flexible and it came off in flakes rather than curls. Though after a bit of experimenting, I realized that it's easier to carve on a concave surface like this. The brand of soap also made a difference, because this transparent blue one was much softer and easier to work with. But just when I thought I was getting the hang of this, the peeler suddenly slipped and it took a huge chunk out of my nail. I was actually incredibly lucky that this only hit my nail, because I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if it had been my skin. After all this drama, I decided that I'm completely done with soap carving and cutting. However, I did want to try out one last thing, which was to crush the soap using a pestle and mortar. Some of my favorite soap videos on Instagram have incredible ASMR with this, but sadly, my attempt didn't produce any sound effects. I even left the soap in the freezer for a few hours to harden up, which would hopefully make them crunchier. So on the whole, I was quite disappointed with my soap experiments. These look so easy on Instagram, but are much trickier and even downright dangerous in real life. Number 5 is good old slime pressing. The important part here is getting the right consistency of slime. It needs to be soft enough so it pulls away easily, but not so much that it gets stuck to your equipment. As you can see, you'll often get completely different results each time. One of my favorites was actually using a sink filter to press the slime. I know this isn't exactly the same thing as the original trend, but just look how satisfying this turned out. In the end, the best attempt was this orange one, which creates those clear stringy bubbles you can pop. However, since this was an old slime, it's really hard to replicate the texture. This is why I'm giving slime pressing a medium rating, because it's really satisfying when done right, but the results are quite unpredictable. If your slime is too sticky, then it can also be very time-consuming to clean your equipment. This next one is fairly similar, but it involves pushing slime out of a container rather than pressing something on top. This is quite a bit easier since the consistency doesn't make a big difference. I tried it out using clear slime, cloud slime, and glittery slime. Although it's fun and safe, this one is just a tiny bit too simple to be truly satisfying, so that's why I decided not to give it a high rating. Now we're going to move on to kinetic sand experiments. These have been around Instagram for ages, and for good reason, because they're safe and easy to make and really calming to look at. The sand is quick to set up using a mold and very uncomplicated to clean. You can also decorate it with glitter and everything is reusable afterwards. The clips are also great when played backwards, so even though this is a slightly older trend, kinetic sand cutting gets 5 stars. Another variation of this trend is kinetic sand pressing. This involves using a fairly tall mold for the sand and then pressing it down using a round or patterned object. Just like with slime pressing, you can get creative by trying out different tools, like a kitchen gadget, baking rack, or badminton racket. The advantage over slime pressing is that you don't have to worry about the texture, since kinetic sand will turn out satisfying every time. The cleaning up is also quick and easy to do. I think this is on the same level of satisfaction as sand cutting, so I'm going to give it the same rating. Last but not least, we have Jiggly water slime. I actually made a whole video about this trend right here, but I decided to film a separate clip of it since I had so much slime left over. This is simply clear slime mixed with a lot of water and then left to sit until it turns jiggly. I'm also going to sprinkle the top with some decorations, which you see a lot in those viral videos. This produces some great ASMR, but the overall rating for this DIY is not so high because making the slime is very time consuming. Especially if you want transparent slime, you have to wait many days for it to turn clear, and even though the result is very satisfying, you can only play with it for a few minutes before everything goes cloudy again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know down below if there are any other Instagram trends you've seen and you'd like me to try out. I'm Joanna, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.